Yo, what's up guys, HexxInkworks here. I know it's been a while and I'm sorry about that, but today I'm doing the final video for the MTN unboxing, which is for MTN's water-based markers, and when they sent me these they were pretty new, while they've been out a while now. From what I've seen online they seem pretty good, better than your typical economic paint marker, and so I was stoked to see them when they included them in their package for me. These water-based markers, like many other markers, use an acrylic paint formula, resulting in saturated colours and high opacity. With this being said, they are very popular within the art community as a whole, just simply for their versatility and their high quality. I can vouch for this because I myself have used them on many different surfaces for many different purposes. The markers comes in lots of different shapes and sizes, starting with the precise ultra-fine nib, then the extra fine, then your typical small round head fine marker, and then moving up to the bigger round head medium marker. It then moves on to the wider tips with the 8mm chisel, and finally with the 15mm wide tip. They also sell refill bottles as well that come in 20 different colours similar to the markers themselves, and with it being water-based paint you can pretty much put it in anything. Now I'll stop introducing the markers and actually show you them. As always with any paint marker, before you use them you want to give it a really good shake before you even think of pumping them up. Now oddly, when I pumped the black marker, it not only juiced up in one pump, but as you can see it completely flooded, while with the green marker I needed to pump it several times to get it juiced up. I presume this is just due to the formula since it's a different colour. Now thanks to the tapered tip of the extra fine marker, this allows you to get different marks ranging from thick to thin, allowing you to perform really small details to thicker lines. Now I've used some acrylic markers in my time, but this black is really nice. The saturation is great, it has a nice thickness to it, but doesn't seem too thick that it affects the flow. Something new that I'm trying to include in my videos is a streak test, which is where I just increase the speed of the marker. And as you can see from the footage, this black Montana water base doesn't really have any problems coping with it. Now I'm doing the same thing with the green, however the green seems lighter than what the colour donut indicates, but minus this, so far it seems to have a similar nature to the black. However, this green doesn't seem to cope as well as the black did in the streak test. But I could tell that there was something a bit weird about this marker from pumping it up. I don't know whether it's to do with the paint or the formula, or whether I haven't shook it up enough or what. Now moving up to the fine marker and starting with the blue. Unlike before, the colour donut perfectly represents the paint inside, which is fortunate as it's a really nice colour blue. Similar to before though, the paint's just really nice, saturation's great, the flow's great, and the colour's really bright. As you can see from the footage, this blue marker has no problems with the streak test at all. Due to the size of the nib, this marker would be good for details and thinner outlines. Now I'll move on to the other marker in the pack, which is red, and similar to the blue, it has a nice colour, nice flow and opacity, and once again has no problem with the streak test. Finally in the set is the yellow, and you can tell that these are all from a set just because it matches the characteristics to the other colours. Has a nice bright colour, nice flow and great opacity. So far these acrylic markers really are decent acrylic markers. Seems like the blue, red and yellow all seem to cope decently in the streak test. Now I'll move on to the bigger version of these markers, which is the medium, and this one is in a coffee light brown. This is a typical paint marker size and is nice for outlining and small fills, and like before there's a nice saturation and finish. However, the brown doesn't seem to cope as well in the streak test, but this might just be down to me not juicing it up enough considering it's a fatter nib. And finally, now I'll move on to the wider tip marker, which is the 8mm pink chisel tip. Due to the nib and the dramatically higher density compared to the rest of the markers, it took a lot longer to juice up, but this is to be expected. With the wider tip though, this opens you to a whole new world of possibilities compared to the other tips, such as you have two sides to get marks from, faster, larger fills, calligraphic strokes, and of course wide lines. Now as always with marker tests, I will move on from paper and use the same mount board I always use, which has a coating on one side which affects how the paint soaks into the paper, making it a delight to write on. So as to be expected, and as you can see, all the points on the paper are simply reinforced. with this black being blacker and smoother to write with, and as you can see the rest of the colours react similarly as well. With the mount board done, I'll now move on to plastic, and unlike the mount board, the plastic will not absorb any paint whatsoever. This is due to the properties of the plastic and the water-based paint, and how, since the paint doesn't use a solvent, it doesn't stain into the plastic itself. You can see how the paint simply sits on top of the plastic due to how some of the lines are a little bit fuzzy. This is how the water is dispersed across the smooth surface of the plastic. With the plastic done, I'll now move on to glass, which in a way is effectively like an alternative plastic. However, plastic typically has a colour to it unless it's uncoloured, which is when it's typically used as an alternative glass. Now, as a result, this affects the opacity and therefore the saturation of the paint and the marker itself, as it doesn't have a colour behind to shine through it. So I thought that with coverage and opacity being a massive thing for acrylic markers, that it would be worthwhile to do a coverage test. Here I draw a bar of colour with each marker and then simply do the same but rotate it so it's overlapping. This way you can see how each colour reacts to another one. Overall, I think the MTN water-based markers have done pretty well in the coverage test, to be honest. There's a few bits where the colour from beneath is showing, such as certain areas on the pink, but this could probably be corrected with just another coat. As with cheaper paint markers, you'll need to give them several coats anyway, but considering for the most part, it's mainly done it in one coat. So in summary, I think the MTN water-based markers are pretty good markers, to be honest. As we can see from the review, the opacity is good, the saturation is good, and they come in a decent amount of colours and lots of different sizes. I think if they invested in some more colours, they'd have a real competitor in the water-based acrylic game. But yeah, that's the review done, guys. That's this video over and done with. This has been HexxInkworks with the MTN water-based review. Peace out, guys.